All right, let's jump right in. We're going to unpack a kind of dark fantasy, a story that's really about the architecture of power itself. It's all about a god, his shadow, and the real cost of getting things done.
You know the trope, right? Every hero needs an advisor. It's that classic, wise mentor figure, the one who guides the protagonist. We see it everywhere. It's a story we all know. But here's the twist. What if that advisor isn't so noble? What if they're actually a necessary evil? Imagine the hero's biggest dreams depend on someone willing to play in the moral gray areas. And that's where things get really interesting. That pull between a great goal and the, let's just say, unpleasant things you might have to do to get there. Okay, so Act 1. To really get what's going on here, we have to talk about something called the Faustian architecture. And no, this isn't just about one old story. It's a pattern, a kind of relationship that shows up again and again, and it tells us a whole lot about ambition and power. So what is it? Well, picture this. You've got a protagonist who is driven by this huge, all-consuming ambition. And to make it happen, they team up with a cynical, maybe even amoral advisor who just gets the job done. It's basically a deal where ambition gets a free pass thanks to a very clever, very pragmatic partner. And this brings us to our main players, our archetypes. On one side, you have Wotan, the architect. He's the one who literally builds reality, sets the cosmic laws, all driven by this need for supreme power and order. And on the other side, you have Loj, his shadow. He's the catalyst. His job is to bend, break, and bypass all those rules. He's the one who does the evil acts that Wotan can't or won't. Now, Wotan's power, it's not what you'd think. It's not some giant hammer. His real weapon is his voice, his manipulative eloquence. He's the master of the word. He literally uses these runes on his spear to write the laws of reality, to build a universe he can control. Think about that, shaping everything just by speaking it into existence. But, and this is the classic tragic twist, right? The very system he created to bring order and structure, it became a cage. Those divine laws, they became so rigid that they started to choke off all progress. The world he built got stuck, trapped in this state of decay. So, Act 2. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this actually works. I mean, how does a god who wrote the laws get around them when they're in his way? Simple. You outsource the dirty work. And that's Loki's cue. He's the trickster, the master rhetorician. He can talk his way out of anything, bypass any moral line. He's the one who actually does the things Wotan wants done but can't do himself, without looking bad and ruining that whole noble god persona. The system is brilliant in a really cynical way. It's a simple 4-step process. 1, a god has a will. 2, one of his own laws is in the way. 3, the shadow, Loj, bends or breaks that law. And 4, the god gets the reward and his hands stay perfectly clean. It's like outsourcing your morality. And this really gets to the heart of Loj's role. See, he's not just a bad guy. He's what you'd call a destructive catalyst. The world has gotten stagnant, stuck. Loj's scheming, his chaos, it creates the friction needed to force change. He's the one who forces that old, rigid system to either evolve or shatter. Okay, so continuing in Act 2 here, we need to talk about the mask of nobility, because this entire partnership, it's really built on a giant lie. A lie told to the world, and maybe even a lie Wotan tells himself. Here's the key. This whole setup is strategic. It lets Wotan get all the rewards from some pretty shady actions, while Loj is the one who takes the blame. It means Wotan gets to keep up this semblance of nobility, using his powerful words as a mask for his own raw ambition. And if you look at this, it lays it all out pretty clearly. Wotan's public image as a god of law, sky high. His private ambition to get what he wants, also sky high. But his actual moral accountability for how he gets it, way down low. Loj is the one who pays that price, which creates this massive hypocrisy right at the center of Wotan's world. And that leads to a question that's a lot bigger than just this story, right? I mean, if your shadow does the deed, are your hands really clean? It's a deep dive into accountability. If you get the rewards from something bad someone else did for you, are you really innocent? All right, Act 3, the price of power.
because eventually the bill for this kind of deal always comes due. You can't build a system on loopholes and moral shortcuts and expect it to last. The rot always finds its way to the foundation. So, what was the end result of this grand, complicated plan? Total stagnation. A world completely stuck. The combination of those super rigid laws and the constant corner cutting to get around them just ground everything to a halt. No growth, no evolution, nothing. This timeline really shows the whole tragic story. First, Wotan creates order with his spear. Then comes the corruption, as Loge does the dirty work. That leads to stagnation, where the world is trapped by these broken rules, which means the only thing left is a reckoning. The system has to come down for anything new to be created. And this is where it gets truly wild. Wotan, the guy who built the whole thing, realizes that he is now the problem. He's the final roadblock. So to facilitate a new era, to save everything, he has to strategically will his own end. He has to choose to let it all fall apart. Which brings us to this moment, the shattering of the spear, the ultimate surrender of divine authority. The new hero, Siegfried, breaks Wotan's spear, that symbol of all his laws and power. But here's the thing, it's not a defeat in the way you'd think. It's a surrender, a sacrifice Wotan allows, because it's the only way to move forward. And what rises from all that destruction? A new kind of humanity. Siegfried represents that. Humanity unbound by those old, rigid, divine rules. It's about self-determination, the freedom to make your own way, to forge your own destiny. So, after all that, the drama, the pacts, the destruction, what's the final lesson here? What are we supposed to take away from this whole story? It comes down to this really powerful and kind of difficult idea, that sometimes creation requires destruction. Progress isn't always about adding something new. Sometimes you have to tear the old thing down completely, even if it was built with the best of intentions, just to make room for what comes next. And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. Wotan's spear was a symbol of a law that became a prison. So it makes you wonder, right? What outdated laws or rigid frameworks in our own world need to be shattered for a new era to begin?